come to listen to me today. What a surprise to see so many people. A little bit about myself. So my name's Katherine Hart and I stay in Jersey. But I have a national role that, so I'm the spokesperson for my institute, the Chartered Trading Standards Institute, on scams and doorstep crime. So I'm the one that ends up with my name in the paper quite a lot for doing good, I would like to say, not bad, to which my parents are quite thankful for. And also I've been on sort of the likes of Rip Off Britain, Watchdog, the news and that sort of thing. I am no expert. So people refer to me sometimes as an expert. I'm not an expert because every day I learn, and every day it's somebody's experiences like yourselves that come to speak to me about, and that's how I learn. But I am no expert. You guys are probably more expert about it than I am. So that's a little bit about me. So doorstep crime. It just sounds a bit of a scary word really, and it is because it is. We've got to be quite serious about it.
Katherine, sorry to say that. You're a bit
Yeah.
But
Now I feel as though I'm going to do karaoke. Sorry about that, if I burst into song, but is that better for everybody now? Okay. Oh my goodness, I've got two things to do. This could go all disastrously wrong. Right, so doorstep crime comes in so many different guises. So it's the thing about the knock on the door from somebody that might just appear out of the blue. It can be the online things that we get. It can be the texts, and it can be the telephone calls, mail. We don't tend to get an awful lot of mails we used to. But we've got to remember it is any means possible to take our money out of our pockets and feed a criminal lifestyle. That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, the ultimate aim at the scammer is to profit out of our misery. So doorstep crime, as I say, comes in so many different guises, and these are just some examples. It actually looks quite blurry up there, to be honest, but it's things like a knock on the door that could be by a company saying, look, I'm just in the area today. I can do your driveway. Not only that, a brilliant price just for today only, and because you look like such a special customer, we'll knock 20% off. You feel compelled sometimes, you feel as though you want to be buying this sort of deal. It could be something like, it could be, so I'll just talk about it. I've got all these examples up here, but I've got a couple of sort of local examples actually. So we had somebody that got a knock on the door to say, sir, this is just after the storms. Your slates on your roof are loose. It's really important that you get those fixed. We can go up there and do it's a quick survey for you and get it done. So the guy went, oh, okay then, okay. So he goes up and the guy comes down, oh, it's worse than I expected. Oh, it's terrible up there, £20,000. And the guy said, oh no, I can't afford it. He said, well, if you don't get it done right now, that slate, that loose slate, might fall on your postie's head. And because I've told you, you'll get done for murder. Not manslaughter, murder, because I told you, because you've now got knowledge. Now, what do you think? You know, you're suddenly thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I feel pressured into this. So the poor gentleman actually did sort of fall for that sort of thing and went to the bank and withdrew lots of money because he felt pressurised. So that's the other thing that we do. Got telephone scams. It's the type of thing, in fact I got one yesterday myself. Amazon Prime, your subscription. Absolutely nonsense. A lot of the time it's automated, but some of the time they do actually know who you are. Hello Mrs. Hart, we just got, how are you today? Or, hi Mum. That's the other one you get, or hi Miss Katherine, also get a lot of that. Just be aware of those please. Again, the whole idea about scams, take your money, put it into their pockets. We have things like, romance scams. Now, these are the worst ones ever, because when we say romance, it's actually a lot of the time it's companionship. So people are a little bit lonely sometimes and they're just looking for a friend. And it just, so unfortunately I don't quite like putting them in all under this sort of romance scam thing. What it is like, you know, you're a bit lonely and you start to you know, see some ads for perhaps friendships online. So you get on, you know, you might sort of apply to that sort of thing, or pen pals, and that's. Unfortunately, there's a lot of con artists out there that will try and use any tactic possible to, again, it's about befriending you, and it's actually about taking your money. Now, these are the worst scams ever, in my opinion, because it's not just the financial, it's the heartstrings and the psychological, and people don't want to speak about them. And these are the most important ones in some ways, because these are the ones you need to speak about, because we need to find out who the con artists are. And then the other thing is like, oh yeah, I had one person that was, I'm laughing, it's a terrible thing. Guys turned up at a garden, this garden, actually in Cooper, and this is a couple of years ago, and knocked on the door. And I don't know if anybody has teenagers, I'm sure some of you have had teenagers. Teenagers, I've got two of my own, decided, you know, they're just, let's face it, they're not most communicative. So, knock on the door, teenager opens the door, and there's this guy standing there saying, I've come to do the driveway. I'm coming, you know, and the guy went, oh, because that's what they do. As a little bit of a grunt, and the guy started to basically get on and dig up the driveway. When his mum came home that night, she hadn't agreed to anything. Hadn't agreed to anything. What the guys had done, they had decided that that grunt meant consent from a 15-year-old, dug up the driveway, and then demanded money. And they demanded £7,000 from this woman. Thankfully, she rang the police. Thankfully, police came round together with me, and we actually booked the guys. They were still on site. Some of the guys sort of ran away, but we did manage to get hold of them. But the problem with that is now she's got this devastation, and now has to fund to try and get it better. So that, you know, it's terrible at the end. You know, it's the unfortunate situation we're in now. We can't actually trust anybody, and that's well, I'm going to say not trust anybody. Trust anybody that just appears at your door or knocks out of you. So, criminals love a drama. Oh, don't they just? Or a crisis. What I've seen in the last few years with the pandemic, oh my goodness. We have seen everything from, we need to come and disinfect your doorbell, your driveway. We had so many NHS type scams. We're from your NHS, we want to, you know, all you'd have to do is pay $1.99 for your COVID pack and all this sort of carry on. We're still seeing it. They tried to sort of monkeypox, that came up, woof, there's criminals were right in there. When there was a storm, we had an increase of people knocking at the door to try and sort of say that there's been problems, or what can we do for you? We can help you with the trees and all the rest of it. Again with the floods as well. Ukraine, you know, the criminals, they are so absolutely despicable. So anything about they set up bogus charities again. The whole idea was preying on our goodwill and taking our money and funding their criminal lifestyle. And of course now, the cost of living. I put out a press release last week that will be picked up by the BBC, I think, next week. And again, it's all about the energy efficiency scams, rebate scams. We're also getting a whole pile of counterfeit goods in the run-up to Christmas again. A lot of things online. It's got to be very, very careful about what you're buying. Be very, very careful. And of course, there's an increase in unsafe products as well. So, to get around some of those things that are counterfeit goods and unsafe products, just make sure that you're buying from a reputable dealer. I mean, ideally you'd shop local, but obviously these days local, unfortunately, so many businesses have gone out of business, they don't exist anymore. But making sure if you do buy something, buy it using sort of credit card, PayPal, Klarna, these sort of things. I know that some of you are going, oh, what on earth is she talking about? But even your debit card, but all of those things will actually give you an extra layer of protection, and it's important that you do that. So scams actually affect everyone. Used to be, give me 10 years ago, and I would be saying, oh, but perhaps it affects more of an elderly person that lives alone. Actually, no, it doesn't. It affects every single one of us, and our children, and our grandchildren. It affects everybody. My children have been targeted. My 11-year-old's been targeted. She's got a phone now. She's receiving just as many scams as anybody else, especially about Amazon or sort of computer type games. There's all sorts that's affecting everybody. So we need to talk about it. We need to talk to each other about it as well. And what I'm trying to say is, again, do not ever feel embarrassed about either being fallen for a scam or received a scam, because how many in this room have received a scam? Exactly, just about everybody has. There is a statistic that says about 97% of people have actually received a scam over the last wee while, certainly during COVID. There's a whole thing about driving licence scams, a big thing about that at the moment, and also that because Facebook is I don't know if anybody uses social media here, but social media is actually a very good way of passing great information. I see all the stuff that the church does, but it's also a great way of passing on scams as well. Unfortunately, a lot of people do fall for them that way. So, that's all doom and gloom, isn't it? Sorry about that. So we did a vulnerability survey, and again, this is just to sort of emphasise the fact that scams affect everybody. That there's a higher level of sort of younger adults that are now sort of falling for scams or certainly receiving scams. And there's a huge increase of messages and knocks on the door and that sort of thing. But most of all, people now feel a little bit more vulnerable when making purchases. And whilst that's terrible to feel like that, in some ways it's a good thing for me, because it makes me think you're actually questioning what's happening, and that's good. And I think that's something that we have to realise, is that we have to question everything these days. WhatsApp. Now, has anybody had this scam? No? Well, this particular scam, this is quite emotive. It's very, very emotive. I've spoken to quite a few people who have actually fallen for this, and again, they don't want to talk about it because they feel embarrassed. And basically, out of the blue, you receive text. I've had it. Mum, I'm texting you because I smashed the phone. Now, if your children live away, or you've got teenagers like me who are partying or going off to concerts and all the rest of it, or even students, unfortunately, when I receive that to me could be genuine. And the first thing you do, you go into that parent mode. Are they okay? Are they okay? So you're tempted to actually go and text that number. Hi, so-and-so, what's wrong? And immediately you go, hi Adam, what's the problem? They're in it, so you've given them your name. It's given you your son's name. It's very, very, they're very, very quick, and they're very, very quick to exploit our emotional state. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Because you go into panic mode, you think there's something happened to your child, or there's some sort of problem. And basically, the whole thing about that is about trying to get your money. So the next thing is that the text will come back and say, I've dropped my phone, I need to pay a bill, or somebody's happened, I need to pay £20, can I have your bank account or your debit card? And things like that. People have just spent, basically the bank accounts have been emptied by these scammers. So, because a lot of parents just feel this sort of anxiousness, what my advice is that if you receive a text like that, now it could be genuine, and we know that this could be genuine. What you should go is just try and be generic as you can, as general as you can, and just say, ask them a question that only you would know. What's the colour of my front door? Now, only you or your child would know that. Don't ask them things like the dog's name, because sometimes those are sort of things that a criminal might harvest at a later date. Just think about something, you know, what are my favourite shoes? You know, it's just something really silly, something very, very personal. What colour is the dog's collar? You know, it's all of those sort of things. So just think about that sort of thing, really. Because again, these criminals, unfortunately, are quite sophisticated. Oh, delivery scams. Who's had delivery scams? Yep. Now, a lot of these on the increase as well. It was quite funny. I got that IPS one, which is meant to be UPS, yesterday. I thought, oh, that's great. I'll stick that one on my presentation there. Every, the other one, Royal Mail. That's a bit. So the whole thing, they're all very, very similar. It's called data harvesting. So basically, you get this thing that says from the post office or DPD or whatever to tell you that, you know, that there's a parcel out for delivery and it's been failed delivery. Now, because we live in a different world these days, you know, we all rely on the post. We're all getting more and more of these deliveries through the door. So if you click on that link, and it looks great actually, you know, this is what's this? I can't quite read that one. This is the post office missyourparcel.com. It looks pretty sophisticated to me, looks great. In fact, not only that, click on the link, goes on to branch finder. What's your local branch? I made one up. So I've made one up, and I actually put sort of an address in Aberdeen. And it then tells me, lucky me, there's 6 branches in my area. Excellent. This is from a made-up postcode, I could really say. So then it tells me to find my parcel and ask me for my full address. I told them I lived in Scam Street, so I filled it all in. And the next thing they tell me, nicely, they just want $1.99. Then they deliver my parcel. Now, what they've actually got from me is my full address. Obviously they didn't because I made it up, and I also didn't press send. But what they could have got from me, I should say, is my full address, my date of birth, my account number, and you wouldn't actually know. Now, what was awful about these sort of scams is people then lost perhaps $1.99 and didn't think anything about it. Just thought, I've only lost $1.99 or $2.99. That's not a lot of money. But what then happened is in about 3 weeks' time, there was a phone call. We're from your bank's fraud department. We believe that you fell for a delivery scam that you paid $2.99 for. And you go, very, very sorry to tell you, you have been a victim of a fraud. Now, these are the fraudsters ringing you. So then they say, we know your name, we know your postcode, we know the last 4 digits of your card number. Now, how do they know that if they're not genuine? Because you've actually told them, you've forgotten you told them, but you've told them. So you've actually drip-fed these scammers your personal details. And that's why it is very, very you have to be very careful about sharing these sorts of details online. You don't know where they're going to go. You wouldn't get on a bus to Dundee and sit next to a stranger and tell them everything about you. But we tend to do that with things online. We tend to do that when we're filling in surveys. And that's why we've got to be very, very careful about passing on our personal details. These are the sort of things from NHS. I'm still getting them, still seeing them all the time. And again, passport was the other thing. I've seen quite a lot of the passport type scams. Just don't click on the links. The thing is, if you do click on the link, there used to be this sort of, if you click on the link, you're going to download spyware into your phone. That's actually not true. You shouldn't click on the links, but if you do click on the links, your phone's not going to sort of suddenly go into smoke. What does happen though is if you click on the link and then put your personal details, that's where the crime or the potential crime can happen at a later date. So you're best just deleting them or forward them to 7726, but I'll come to that later. These are just a couple of ones that have come in just recently. These are the ones at the moment. So there's a lot of these sort of energy efficiency type scams. These are the ones that are coming through the phone. I'm also unfortunately hearing a lot more about people knocking on the door, doing the old traditional doorstep crime again. Knock on the door. Oh, you're entitled to a grant. Don't worry about it. All I could do, we'll do a survey, free survey. So two guys go up into your attic space with their little clipboards and they come down going, oh, it's looking a bit rough up there. But you'll be entitled to a grant, so no problem. And they come back with this spray foam and they go in their spray foam and they're in their attic and it's completely a mess, but it doesn't matter. You feel as though it's okay, I can get that money back through the rebate scheme. What then happens is actually not entitled to any money through the rebate scheme. You've actually just lost £6,000 and it's very difficult to actually remortgage your house. And these guys then blissfully go on to another area. So they might be in Fife today, they'll be in Angus tomorrow, they'll be in Aberdeenshire, and they don't care as long as they've got your money. So as I say, we are seeing a lot of this sort of door-to-door type activity, so just be careful about that. Now, it is financial abuse, and again, it's scary words, abuse, crime, but it's actually a really, really important subject. I mean, sometimes you use the word scams, and it's just like, it's just all sort of anonymous. That it's a little bit of money. It's just, you feel so silly. Now, the words I hear from a lot of victims, I feel so silly. I shouldn't have done it. In hindsight, I did this. No, these are serious and organised crime groups that are that's what their business is, to get your money. So the impact is massive. It's like any other crime, and that's why it's so important to speak out about it. I've heard about people losing their whole life savings. I mean, everything, all the stuff that they saved, their funeral plans, everything gone, and it's very difficult to get back. One lady, she was 96, her husband had just been taken into hospital, and she was by herself, feeling quite fragile as it was receiving nuisance calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, she had problems with the mobility as it was. Now, imagine you get a call, you have to go down the stairs to pick up the phone, and it's just these criminals just asking for money. How appalling is that? They have no morals. People getting threatening letters, and of course then there's this sort of feeling of being trapped in social isolation and not knowing where to turn to. And again, this word, I'm so frightened, or I'm so embarrassed because I shouldn't do it. I don't want to tell my children. I don't want to tell anybody because they're all going to think I'm silly, that I'm unable to cope. Absolute nonsense. Because we've all been there, we've all received it, and we all know how easy it is to fall for one of these types of scams. And again, sort of health and welfare. There's a figures released today that actually just £100 of a scam can actually tip somebody right into the sort of cost of living massive crisis now. So it's a big thing. It's a big thing, and that's why we shouldn't. We as enforcement agencies need to know what's actually happening out there, because sometimes we live in our little utopian blanket, or we don't know what's going on, because if something happens, something comes to my phone, I might delete it, but something happens to somebody else, they might actually fall for it, and that's what I need to know. And again, unfortunately, the psychological and unfortunately, I've come across people who have felt that they can't cope anymore, particularly when it comes down to sort of massive, the sort of financial aspects, because they don't know where to turn to. So, general advice. Don't think I've got any. Where's it gone? Well, there is some things on, there should have been something on that, but never mind. Anyway, so what you should actually do, I know this is quite small here, but you receive a text. What I'd like you to do is forward it to 7726. That actually spells spam on a keypad. So it's quite clever. And basically it'll come up and it will say something like, This is 02. Thank you very much for reporting that. What's the number it's come from? And so you just copy the number and you put it in. Or if you can't do that, just say NHS or wherever it's come from, passport.gov or whatever. Now, if you receive a call from your bank, you know I was talking about the delivery scams earlier. We're from your banking fraud department. You have been a victim, or they do that sort of thing. They do that scary voice as well. Hang up. I'm not being rude. Hang up. Dial 159. Now 159 is actually a number that the banking industries have actually come together. And basically it will say dial 1 for Royal Bank of Scotland, dial 2 for Santander, something like that. Oh, these lines. So you've got this, going to karaoke. So that then you will be forwarded to the right department and they will let you know whether that is genuine or not. Really important. If you've had a scam and the scam comes to your door, please contact Advice Direct Scotland. Advice Direct Scotland will give first line advice, but the most important thing about it, it gets filtered to the local trading standards wherever that company might be. So for us to get statistics, it's really important. We get the statistics, we're able to go to the government saying we need money to be able to help tackle it. But it's not just about trading standards, it's working with partner agencies such as social work, such as police, there's so many different agencies that all work together to try and tackle this. But we've got to remember, if there's somebody knocking on your door and they won't go away, you close the door and you ring 999. Simple. There is nobody is ever going to be to criticise you for doing that. Because again, remember these guys are in a job to try and get your money. Sometimes they don't go. I've come across quite a few of those people myself. And then the other thing is to ring 101, ring the police. They've even got online reporting. I do online reporting quite a lot. And again, there's a Friend Against Scam, which actually gives you free training and certificate to actually make you aware of some of the scams that are going on. So that's really about, there's an awful lot of information there. But the other thing I will say though, is that there's an awful lot of people going around at the moment saying that they're either from the council or utility companies knocking on the door as well. Now the best way is to try and, to rather than looking at somebody's ID, because an ID can be easily, it's made up, it's made up. I've got one in my bag there of my son, Chief Inspector Hart. He did it when he was in primary school. He's now, Callum's now 19. I always get it out of talks. He gets really embarrassed. But basically, the whole idea about it, it's got this little picture of a little child with a nice police emblem that says Chief Inspector Hart, with a number on the back. So I tell people, ring that number on the back. It rings me. Can we verify who Chief Inspector? Oh yes, he's definitely Chief Inspector Hart. He's only little. But basically, what I'm trying to say, and sort of a bit of fun there, is the fact that it can be so easily made up. So don't believe somebody with ID. What we try and encourage people, and certainly utility companies and the council and places like that, to use password schemes. So it's a password that you and them agree with, knock on the door and just say, so the password is blah blah. I know it's a bit like Secret 7 here, but that's the way we have to do things, because we've got to be able to protect ourselves. But the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is I want you to speak about it. I want people to have a discussion and not ever feel embarrassed about reporting it. You know, come to me, speak to people about it. And if you see something going on in somebody else's house as well, it's not being a nosy busybody, it's actually being a good neighbour. Communities are the best way. If we get together as a community, we can all help each other and support each other, and that is so important. Communities only thrive when the communities are involved. So that's my last word really. Speak out, come together as a community, and please don't share your personal details. Okay. I'm happy for any questions either now or you can take my email